Yes, please.
I am a mechanical engineer and an MBA from Pune, both done in Pune. I started my working career from Mumbai. If we want somebody from your company, it must be you to be the torchbearer once every 15 days. And, they are published in Indian publications. And even after that duration that you have material available to you is over, you keep subscribing post that to a fee.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, a podcast series by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. I am Rajesh Joshi, and today we are honored to have a visionary business leader whose career spans over 4 decades across global markets. From spearheading growth for multinational corporations to mentoring the next generation of leaders, his strategic insights have shaped industries and empowered businesses around the world. With deep expertise in business development, operations, and global market expansion, he has made a profound impact across sectors including consumer goods, FMCG, and technology. Currently serving as a consultant director and a member of several prestigious advisory councils, it is my privilege to introduce Mr. Niranjan Gidwani. Mr. Gidwani, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Rajesh, and thank you to Directors Institute.
Okay, to start this conversation, Mr. Niranjan, your career spans over 4 decades, leading various global ventures and working with esteemed brands. Could you share the key milestones that shaped your journey and how did you navigate challenges that arose across different industries?
Okay. Rajesh, firstly, I think I need to give a little background about myself.
Yes, please.
I am a mechanical engineer and an MBA from Pune, both done in Pune. I started my working career from Mumbai. I initially joined SKF in bearings for a year or year and a half, and I
Okay.
realized that somewhere I am not cut out for a hardcore engineering job, even though I am essentially an engineer by background.
Mhm.
I am more cut out for either a role in marketing or a techno-commercial kind of role. So I promptly switched and started applying for jobs. And also, you must understand that when you come from a middle class background and you have done your MBA back to back with your engineering, the
Mhm.
chances are that you are likely to be looking around faster, and which is what happened to me. So, in the span of the first 8 years, I changed 4 jobs. And in
Okay.
the span of the last 34 years, I changed 4 jobs. So that's
Okay.
how the change happened. So I shifted to HSBC. They offered me, I went through a series of interviews, although I'm not a finance background person. But I think what happened in HSBC, I also got a role in Hong Kong and a short tenure in Bangkok. What
Mhm.
happened in HSBC was I was angling for only two kinds of roles, keeping, as I told you, my interest in either marketing or something to do with, more decision making. I was being shifted around to roles in admin, etc.,
Mhm.
which was not up my sleeve. So I waited for some time and I realized that probably I don't have a godfather in the system to push me up.
Mhm.
At that time, the then Prime Minister of the nation, Rajiv Gandhi, had started computerization in a big way. The whole
Mhm.
wave started somewhere around mid 80s. And therefore, I decided to go back to the basics and start from an organization called PCL, which
Okay.
was Pertec Computers, which was the distributors for brother brand of electronic typewriters. I was given a fairly large territory to manage. And while I was doing that, I was picked up by the House of Modi's Xerox and their binding and laminating system division. And so at a very young age, I think I was about 28 or 29, I was given half the country to run.
Okay.
But coming, like I said, from a very middle class background, Pune those days was not such an important city. So this bug was there that I should get some international exposure. This is something which is good for the viewers to know that, maybe I work for 2, 3 years, make a little money and go back to India. So I'm
Okay.
now referring to milestones indirectly to you.
Mhm.
So the milestone was I got an assignment with a very large transnational Indian group uh, who were based in almost all the continents, but the chairman was based those days in Tokyo, Japan, and
Mhm.
he was based there for so long that he was actually even beginning to think like a Japanese. They
Okay.
had a role in Singapore, which was a predominantly trading role. So
Mhm.
when you are, in India, when you are given a role, you are given a lot of meaty territory. I had 6 branch heads under me at that age, and large teams. And I was wondering, what will I do in pure trading?
Mhm.
So I declined that role. We went back and forth for about a year, and then they said, we are starting launching our own OEM brand in electronics and appliances, which
Okay.
we want to sell only in third world markets as a value brand, quality value brand. So
Mhm.
would you like to join us in Hong Kong? So that was the milestone of moving from Pune, then to Mumbai, from Mumbai to Delhi for a short while, and then moving to Hong Kong in my first international stint.
Okay.
I was with that group for 10 years. I launched their OEM brand. And when I joined them, this company's division, which was the OEM brand division, had me. I was sharing half a secretary with the owner
Mhm.
and one shipping assistant. And
Okay.
we scaled it up. And in those days, the concept, Rajesh, of startups as it is defined today was not known to us. So, in
Right.
effect, I would say that I have managed 3 or 4 exceptionally good, successful, profitable startups by
Mhm.
today's definition. Those days, I was running a company.
Right.
So, we started initially with a very small, shipments coming out of originally from Japan,
Mhm.
and the entire sourcing was under me. So from Japan, when the cost started increasing, we started shifting a lot of our sourcing to Korea.
Okay.
And that's when from 90, early or mid 90, my uh, travel career started. So that was another milestone. From 1990 till about 2006, which is, I would say, 17 years, I had a very punishing travel routine internationally to cover about 60 countries in this
My.
period, out of which 20 countries on a regular basis each year. So we may not be the same 20 countries, but minimum 18 to 20 countries. Uh, it was about 100 to 120 days a year for this routine. I did not see my elder son grow up. And today, probably he has a little bit of a grudge about that as well. So, and I was also in charge of the entire global sourcing. So we were sourcing those days from companies like Samsung and LG and
Mhm.
Daewoo. They did not have their own brand at that time. They launched their brands much later,
Right.
and they actually sought our advice in their entry strategy. I mean, now the people have changed in those companies, but their entry strategy into India, they were seeking advice from us as to how to enter India. Now these brands are doing phenomenally in the Indian market.
Right.
From there, I moved to, they actually asked me to move to Dubai because, if you are selling in the third world markets, then Dubai sits in the proximity of about almost, you can say, about 2 billion people, out of which 70% are in third world countries. If you include,
Right.
I mean, those days, if you include even including countries like India now, of course, India cannot be defined as a third world country. It's an extremely, fast moving developing nation. So we went into selling this brand into close to about 70 countries. Working on the strategy was very critical, going from the market size of each product category that you're introducing, working backwards, what kind of market share you want, how the price positioning should be. It's not possible to learn all of this in a MNC, because there each person has a very defined siloed role.
Right.
Unfortunately, what happened was at the end of the 10th year that I was there with them, they needed extra funding, which they could not or they were not interested in. So I decided to pull myself back.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time, we had started even sourcing from China. So
Okay.
when we started, so I'm actually kind of a China expert. I have
Okay.
been going into the China market since 1990. There is this very famous Canton Fair, if you are aware of that, which is probably the world's largest global fair in all kinds
Right.
of product categories. I must have made about 32 trips to that fair until now.
My goodness.
Yeah. So all those product categories, etc., which you are buying, there was one Chinese company which was keen on saying that, look, why don't you replicate this model for us in the Middle East? And at that time, I was very keen on understanding the workings, the inside workings of what Chinese managers are. How do they think? What are they trying to say when they say something? What do they mean? So I told them I will take a fixed duration assignment, 2-year role.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I moved and worked with them. And in this interim period, while handling so many countries, so many people of different nationalities, it was very important for me to constantly upskill myself, upgrade myself.
Right.
Somewhere
Right.
in mid 90s, I think it was 94. I'm not sure whether you're aware of this book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen
Yes.
Covey. So I had the good fortune of training under him directly.
Uh-huh.
I did a
Okay.
7 Habits and Principles Centered Leadership program under him. And the reason I mention this is because that was probably the single most defining moment of my life after, a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that 30 plus years after that, I have decided that my life should be led in a very different manner, where the focus has to be more on relationship and work and roles through relationships, not just through dedicated tasks. So
Right.
that was a defining moment also. And then I think I went in for 2 separate top management programs at IIM to constantly upgrade myself.
Mm-hmm.
In between, I was given, after the Middle East, I was given the entire CIS to handle. So I have gone into all those small countries like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, the Stan countries like Kazakhstan,
Right.
Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan. I mean, now it's some time back. So I think there have been several milestones from the time, one has left Pune or even grown up there. And overriding all of this has been the fact that I come from a family background which is very deeply, how should I say, spiritually inclined.
Mm-hmm.
So the training, the inculcation of those values, and wanting to not just talk but even live by those values is what has made me think and act, or wanting to think and act a little differently. That, in essence, is a summary of the major, I would say, other milestones that have come along the way. Is, when I moved from Hong Kong back to Dubai, again culturally a different place. At that time, Dubai was not what it is today. It coming from a place like Hong Kong, this looked like a very small village. Now it is better than Hong Kong. Then I had a transition and moved into Singapore for a 3-year duration. In between, while I was in Dubai, I was based in Germany, so traveling 15 days a month, based there, 15 days here. So yes, it's been a journey.
My goodness me. My
Yes.
goodness me. I mean, while you were actually telling us about all of these experiences that you have had in different markets, I was actually traveling along with you on the map. Going to Hong Kong, going to China, going to Dubai, Germany,
So
Singapore. I mean,
yes.
in a true sense, I must say you have been a globetrotter. I must say that.
And the important part, I think, that as I'm trying to explain to you, Rajesh, is that, somewhere I was kind of conveying to you that there was opportunities if you are based here and you settle here. There are a lot of my friends, etc., who have migrated permanently to. There are 2 or 3 destinations where you go from here.
Mhm,
One is Australia, one is Canada, one is New Zealand.
mhm.
US has opened up recently. In those days, it was not that open as a country.
All right.
But my family and I decided that I think when the time comes and we need to be around, if not physically as much, at least morally, we should be within 3 to 4 hours of flying distance of where the family is. And
Okay.
that necessitated that if I am outside of India, which I would like to be as much as I can,
Mhm.
I'm extremely patriotic, therefore I have no issues with being back there. But I should be, if there is an emergency, I should be able to reach home in 4 to 5 hours. So, so
That's
that's
great. That's
part
great.
of
That's great. That's a good
that's
perspective, I must say. I mean, I
that's
mean,
that's yeah, that's part of how can you say, part of the journey, part of the thought process, all rolled into one. Because mostly, if you realize, Rajesh, is a lot of books are written on success, and nobody really wants to explain to the general people that look, success and destinations are maybe 5% of life. There is the 95% happening, which at least a little bit people should know.
absolutely, absolutely. Those are really invaluable words and insights. Continuing with the journey that you've just shared, during your 34 years of handling 4 international private organizations or groups, you achieved phenomenal growth in each of these organizations. What strategic decisions were crucial in driving this growth, and how did you manage such diverse portfolios?
Okay. Uh, I think I would like to start by saying, Rajesh, that at a deeper level, I operate with 3 very distinct personal philosophies.
Mhm.
The first philosophy is I'm a student of life for life, which means learning is a non-stop exercise for me. My second personal philosophy is that for me, in my existence, there is nothing called the word retirement. I don't know what retirement means actually.
Okay.
Honestly, I can be doing different things. I can decide I want to do nothing, which is also doing something, which means nothing. But what is retirement? Because as you need to look after yourself at any age, as you need to be eating at any age, as you need to be exercising and having fun and going to places, you also need to be doing something which is more meaningful. So
Right.
money is not the be all and end all, but you cannot survive without it. As long as you are doing something and the byproduct of that is ethical money, I want to continue to do that. Till life tells me, look, now I cannot do it or I don't need to do it. But I will still be doing something to give back to whatever it is that my country or the place I have worked has given me, which is something I'm doing on a regular basis. The third thing which sits on top is there is something which I call as ICE square. Okay.
Mhm.
ICE
Mhm.
square is ICE square. So
Okay.
for me, ICE square, I is integrity and inclusiveness.
Mhm.
C is commitment and civility.
Okay.
Okay. And E is ethics and empathy. I mean, this is something which was ingrained into me from a very, very small age.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
have to operate with that. If I have a problem with you, if I even don't wish to meet you ever, if I meet you somewhere suddenly and we come face to face, it doesn't matter what level you are. I will walk up to you. That civility is required to say hello. It's
Right.
very important in today's world because you see what's happening. So now when you have this as the backdrop, let me start with the first assignment. The first company was it had actually no balance sheet till I joined. It was a
Mhm.
zero base. So their objective was to create a brand which is supposed to be sold in third world markets. They had no manufacturing. Manufacturing had to be done outsourced to companies. But the logic was, since it must be a value brand and it should be a quality brand, we must source only from the best companies, which give us a price positioning where we can make money. In
Mm-hmm.
that 10, so this was the basis on which we had to start driving our strategies. So the primary basis was that we need to start making money as quickly as possible. Unlike, if you notice, today's the world of startups, it's very difficult to see when and what point in time they will make real money. But there is a
Right.
difference, in those companies and the way we used to work. So in this 10-year period, I must say that we lost money in the first year. Year 2 to year 7, we made good money hand over fist. Year 8, we lost because in that time the Russian ruble devalued and there was the Asian currency crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Year 9 and 10, we had slowed down on the profitability, but there were infusion of funds required. And for some reason, the owners were not willing to divest their equity or reduce their equity and get another investor in. So this is how. So the
Mm.
whole strategy around creating 8, 10, 12, 15 product categories in the space of electronics, appliances, washing machines, refrigerators, VCRs, VCPs, video cassettes, toasters, grinders. Can you imagine? You need people to be looking at every single aspect of that product category, from how the carton box should be designed, which carton boxes we should be measuring our brand with, how advertising, funding, service capabilities should be built country by country, appointing distributors, sub distributors. Everything had to be worked to a strategy with a small, limited, tight knit team. So sometimes I always tell students to whom I give informal talks or chats, it's good to have very good companies as part of your experience on your CVs. But these companies will give you experience in the area where you're supposed to be. And if you are really good, maybe over a span of 25, 30, 40 years, some few will reach certain positions or at the top. If you want
Right.
real learning and if you want to be a true sense general manager at an early age, I'm not saying you need to, but you could look at companies which will give you that opportunity so that you actually come out as a well-rounded personality. Then we
Absolutely.
come to company number 2, which was the government of China. This is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This 2-year assignment, very specific, that I took.
Yes.
Those days, it's not formally announced, but every Chinese company which was big had somebody from the government side to be sitting there and oversee what was happening. Not
Okay.
from an operational perspective, but the perspective I'm saying.
Right.
So uh, we had to set up operations over here, introduce a brand. I will not go into the name because the Chinese name was a tongue twister. And I told them that, look, if you come with this brand, it'll take very long to create an international name. Now times have changed.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to give an international flavor to your brand name. So they changed the name and launched it in that name. And there the objective was very different. The objective was money was not an issue. You had to create something and do a rapid scale up. But for
Okay.
me, the learning was that I had to understand how somebody who is, let's say, my head, a young guy, maybe a 30-year-old guy who's sent from there
Mm-hmm.
to look after the company, who I had to, you can say, technically report into. How does he think when he's saying something to me? What does he mean? So I picked up a lot about the cultural sensitivities of how to deal with them. And I think it has helped me a lot. Of course, I understand that at a certain political level, there are issues.
Mm-hmm.
But at the ground level, they are extremely fond of us. This is my personal perception
Okay.
of having traveled this often there. When we come to the third organization, which was Singapore based, this was a a conglomerate of different companies, a local Singaporean held group, which wanted to restructure their organizations. And they were not essentially into only electronics. They were into FMCG products. They were distributors of Gillette, Oral-B, Duracell in markets like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Central Asian republics.
Mm-hmm.
Restructuring those companies and preparing them to get onto an IPO on the Singapore A board. That was the role. And then to shift back here, actually, that shift back happened for personal reasons. I was wanting to remain there for some time. But within 3 or 4 months of my joining there, what happened was that my mother had a fall. She was hit while in Pune while going to the temple, to her temple, by a milk truck. And she suffered multiple hip bone fractures and she was bedridden for about 12 years. So when they asked me, would you like to upgrade our Middle East operations, I thought from here, the proximity and the availability of flights is much more. So I shifted back.
Okay.
So that was a defined role. And then the last role came, which is for 14 years as the CEO of one of the top, I would say, 3 to 5 groups in the space of electronics, appliances, mobiles, in distribution, in retail, in wholesale, in export, which was a group which was already there in existence for 38 years before I joined. They were making money, but we had to convert it into a group which was a brand by itself, not known by the brands it was selling, and to add on different distribution brands under its portfolios, which came from different regions. Like they did not have a brand which was from China. They did not have a brand which was from Korea. They had a Japanese brand under their portfolio. So that happened very successfully. So for each of these, the strategy, the kind of hiring that you need to do, the thought process of getting on the right kind of people who can understand you and operate with, I would say, an extremely high level of ethics, because once this philosophy that you have heard, Rajesh, that you actually hire for attitude and train for skills. You cannot do it the other way around, because if the attitude is not right, you can take a lifetime and you cannot be actually training them. So if that is right, then you know that even if a decision is going wrong, or that what you have decided to do has not gone the way you want, you still know that you can sleep well and that the next morning nobody is going to run away with something.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, it's inspiring actually to to travel with you, if I may say so, over these 4 decades, and how the experiences in these organizations, in these 4 different organizations, if I may say so. I mean, they're culturally different.
The cultural sensitivities, Rajesh, is something which was a very, very tough learning exercise. But as I said, the reason I actually told you those 2 or 3, code of conducts I work, because if you are not grounded, if you are not, if you have certain, airs about your position, etc., the chances that you would like to be inclusive and run people along while they are trying to say something, maybe their way of saying or their language, the way of expression is such that we feel there is a conflict of interest. It may not be the case, because they are saying something. We have to understand and find a via media and carry them, and to do it year by year and keep adding. For instance, in the case of one of the companies, we had a fairly large segment of people who are managers who are Indians.
Okay.
And they were used to having, their back office staff as Indians.
Okay.
But the government started saying that, look, if you don't have a mix of nationalities, then for every visa that you are giving only to one nationality, you will have to pay a much higher price, because we want to now create a mix of nationalities. So then we had to decide to bring for the first time a different nationality. We looked around and we realized that, I mean, it's interesting. I'm sharing this with you, Rajesh. We realized that in the back end office work, the Filipinos, people from the Philippines are very good. They speak English. They are a Christian nation. And in terms of doing something which is repetitive and defined, they are extremely good.
Okay.
So when we started bringing them, there was a lot of resistance, extremely high resistance. But over a period of time, they settled in, and now they are so good that I think the company doesn't want to do without those kind of people. Then we had to, for the back end office, I mean, in the logistics, etc., look at different nationalities, because sometimes what happens is that when you are having all of one nationality and all by default of one community, there is a, I'm not saying it is bound to happen, but there is a possibility that I'm giving you the international flair, okay? So there is a possibility that when there is a lot of trouble happening in that division, the information doesn't come out because they are all close knit.
Right, right.
So I had this kind of a philosophy, which I had told HR that, look, if they are good, you please hire them regardless of who they are, but make sure that the mix is such that if there is a layering, every person in the layer is not the same community.
Right.
Because the chances are when things are good, it's all good. But if they are not good, it takes a long time to come out, the information.
Right. Now, continuing with the same discussion, you've been involved in operations across East Asia, CIS, and the Middle East. What challenges have you faced when integrating diverse teams and managing cultural differences, and how did you overcome them? You have obviously given one example, but if there are a couple of them more, please.
Yes, I think there are quite a few. I mean, I have been toying with this idea for a long time because
Mhm.
my wife keeps telling me that, before you get older and start forgetting, you should write a book on your travel journeys. So I have actually thought about the name for the book, and I have written a few articles, but I haven't been able to bring myself to write some more and put it into a book with, short chapters talking about different uh, concepts or attributes of a corporation, but
Mhm.
linking some amount of travel and experiences out of that to get some stories and lessons. Because, as I said, if you go to a bookstore, anything on corporate, 10 easy lessons to do that, 15 easy lessons to do this in a short, summary of 10 points, what you need to do. That's there everywhere. There is nobody who's saying that, look, for example, in the world of startups,
Mhm.
statistically, 5% of them are successful. Maybe in the first 2 years, almost about 25 to 30% don't exist. Somebody must say that, look, I also went wrong somewhere, right?
Right, right.
Everybody cannot be right. So I think that kind of honesty in writing needs to come through for the newer generation, as we say, the Gen Z or the millennials, to realize that, look, we guys have also messed up somewhere. So yeah, so coming back to when I was handling Central Asian markets, and we had a joint venture operation in Moscow at that time, and I'm talking in '91 when
Mhm.
it was just a year into USSR not existing
Right,
after
right.
Gorbachev and Boris Yeltsin, and yeah, it was like a wild west. And we had situations with them, and we had, I mean, the mafia was very strong those days, the Russian mafia. I'm giving you my personal views. Where
Mhm.
you, Rajesh, you don't have the umbrella of certain amount of religion. Some countries don't have it. The crime there and the way they deal with, you know, people who they are, indulging in difficulties or whatever, and how they treat them and how they cut and chop them is very
Mhm.
different.
Mhm. Mhm.
You look at any place where there is no concept of an umbrella of religion,
Mhm.
the crime there is of a completely different proportion. So this is a personal view and experience that I have gathered. How to
Mhm.
set up that office over there, how to manage them. As a result, to be able to interact with them. I mean, they're good people. They're very close to us as country to country. But we are
Mhm.
talking about, guys who are, in the mafia and dealing with them. how to set up systems and practices in place, how to explain to them what needs to be done. I started learning Russian for about 1.5 years, at least basic level. But we had a situation, we wanted to uh, not keep lots of material inside Russia because
Okay.
international laws those days did not apply, were not applicable. And
Mhm.
yet we had to drip feed the market regularly. And we were operating out of this part of the world. So we had to send goods to Hamburg.
Mhm.
From Hamburg, we used to, if 100 were in Hamburg, we used to keep 20 or 25 in Kotka in Finland.
Okay.
And from there, we would drip feed 5, 10, 5, 10 every 10, 15 days. I mean, I'm giving you the percentage as such to keep the
Mhm.
market going. But we have
Okay.
had situations on more than one occasion where the truck has rolled in from Hamburg into Moscow.
Mhm.
Somebody else has taken the truck, the complete truck and the goods away, and the goods are missing. We can't find them. So we actually had to work out an arrangement where we thought of this Hindi movie arrangement.
Mhm.
Those Ajit movies?
Mhm. Mhm.
There was this concept of I tear a dollar bill,
Okay.
I give one half to my office staff in Moscow, and the other
Mhm.
half is with the driver. And
Okay.
only when he goes there and it matches up, he knows that it must be released to this person.
My
So,
goodness.
so, so we had to try very non-standard and non-MBA type of approaches as well. What we used to call in our parlance those days Operation Lal Gulab, that kind of name. Typical Hindi movie style. There was, and I told you there was when you have senior people who are of a certain nationality and you are having events,
Mhm.
and in those events you are ordering only certain kind of meals or their sensitivities are not met, or there were those have been the biggest challenges in an international environment because you don't have the comfort of in a country where you are governed by similar laws, similar thinking, I mean almost similar food habits, religious habits, etc. So then you come to this part of the world where those days the cultural sensitivities were even more. How do you address or talk to a local Arab
Right.
lady when you had to deal with them if she had a complaint or a problem? So those issues were, I think, the bigger challenges. And I think, according to me, the biggest challenge that any person would face as a manager today is if you talk of the word ethics or moral compass.
Mhm.
I'm not saying all, but it's almost considered as a kind of humor. Nobody really takes it seriously, and yet
Right.
everybody is training their children to be good citizens. So there
Right.
seems to be a little bit of a disconnect. I think anybody who wishes to, and people must realize that I was probably an exception. But in today's world, individuals, it's a global village. There will be more people coming in and opening with the Make in India, opening factories. So the other nationalities will come in. They need some kind of assistance and handholding, which is similar to what they are used to.
Right.
And that is what will fast track the Make in India also for India. And the Indians who are going abroad need to realize that while they are, taking their India with them and their heart of India with them, they need to assimilate and not create what you would not want to call, but like ghetto cities where you are all together. You are in a certain country, but you are not part of that country.
Mm.
That is what is creating majority of the challenges with different communities now. So these challenges are big challenges besides strategizing country by country what needs to be done in terms of market share for item A, market share for item B, positioning of price, whatever it is. Those are a lot of people talk about these things, Rajesh, with regards to their product. But at the back of that is the individual. And the
Absolutely.
individual is what is deciding. Even AI, we talk very frequently, and I'm, a person who has dabbled a lot on the technology side of products.
Mhm.
but even the individual is the one who is creating the AI and what goes into the algorithms. So the thought process of the individual is going to decide what comes out at the end.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this is phenomenal. Uh,
Yeah.
just to take this discussion a little sideways, if I may say so,
Yes.
because there is a very interesting question coming up. You've represented India on a global stage, being the torchbearer during the 2010 Guangzhou Asian Games. How did
Yes.
that experience impact your professional and personal life? I mean, this is totally different from what you've been telling us so far.
So, yeah, I think with the same honesty, I would like to explain, Rajesh. It came probably out of the blues because
Mhm.
I don't know how it happened. But I must say this that by that time we had, whichever companies I was working with, we had entrenched ourselves very strongly with the relationships with Chinese companies. And
Mhm.
one of the Chinese companies was kind of a sponsor for the Guangzhou Asian Games.
Okay.
And I think we had a very good equation. And they actually insisted to me that, "Oh, if we want somebody from your company, it must be you to be the torchbearer."
Okay.
So yes, so I agreed. Obviously, it's a matter of pride, but let me share this experience with you. The ceremony started from a city called Zhongshan, which is where
Mhm.
the current, I may not pronounce the name correctly, the thinker of the current thought process of how China should move, a guy called Sun Yat-sen, his
Mhm.
hometown, from there it started.
Okay.
And so I was probably runner number, I think, 124. I don't recall. It's short run, but I was a state guest, and I must say, the feeling I got was that I was given the importance and the hospitality of maybe like somebody like our external affairs minister would get today. And coming from the background from where I come,
Mhm.
it never occurred to me that 15 or 20 or 25 years ago, this is where it would lead. So, in terms of represent, and there were close to about 6,000 runners across China because it's a huge country.
Mhm.
There were only two non Chinese runners. One was
Uh-huh.
from Iran and only one from India. And I
Wow.
still don't know why the one from India happened to be me. So, I think maybe I'm blessed or lucky or whatever it is. And as luck would have it, the torch I ran with was
Mhm.
presented to me. So it's still with me.
Wow.
The torch is still with me. Yeah. The torch I ran with is still with me. And they really did a lot of TV coverage those days.
Mhm.
At that time, I have some bites and snippets also with me. So it was an extremely proud moment that here is a person who is, like I said, in those days, Pune was not, it was an important city, but not such a big city.
Right.
And
Right.
that gentleman has suddenly got propelled into this kind of stardom. And I'm not a sports person. I'm a fit person, a healthy person, but not a sports person. So I guess I can only say it's a lot of luck.
Superb, superb. And yes, one can really agree with you. Uh, it is it is an overwhelming kind of a feeling when
Yes.
you suddenly
Yes.
suddenly get the honor of representing your country and almost out of the blue when you're neither
Yes.
are you there for the job and nor are you expecting anything of that
Yeah.
sort, and
Absolutely.
and, and
And
it just happens to you. That's
and the
absolutely
most
stunning.
yeah, the most important part, Rajesh, is that the kind of companies that I have dealt with and the
Hmm.
kind of people that I have dealt with, they are so close, a majority of them, that I get the same amount of respect and the same amount of honesty out of them that I get from the Japanese. So I
Hmm.
may be an exception, but I can speak for myself. This is the kind of experience I have.
So
Yeah.
taking this discussion forward now, And yes, I'm going to take this topic to ESG.
Yes.
What impact do you believe ESG will have on the future of business leadership? And why is it becoming increasingly important for effective business management?
So we are all, Rajesh, I would say, at an individual level, as well as at a company or a corporate or a city or a municipal level, familiar with what requires to be done to save our planet.
Right.
In one of the, I do a little bit of writing once every 15 days, and they are published in Indian publications and here in the Gulf. And in one of the articles, I had written that essentially, if you look at one of our closest relatives, being the planet Earth, now
Mhm.
this relative is in a critical condition and is in ICU, and you have almost 8 billion people standing outside the ICU, talking, chatting, having a drink, chai, smoking, trying to figure out what is to be done with this patient, where the patient's criticality levels are increasing.
Right.
Now, if the patient has made a will to pass on a legacy, so we know that if we don't do something, none of us will be left with a legacy. So if this, I extrapolate and explain to you the concept of ESG, or in India as they call it,
Mhm.
uh, BRSR, this is very, very crucial today, simply because it's not about compliance through being penalized. It's about commitment. And the commitment can only come through inclusion from the grassroots level. But to make a significant change, only the government cannot do it in any country. And therefore, the organized sector, which is the corporate, has to step in and chip in. So I'm just, giving it to you step by step. This is my feeling. And if they chip in committedly, as opposed to the fact that, look, I have to submit a report, and therefore I must say that it is compliant, is happening less. It's moving more to the commitment, but it's a long haul. The formal part of understanding the knowledge part of ESG, I have just completed with the Directors International uh, ESG Director course. And
Mhm.
I must say that I have an extremely good trainer who has been teaching us. And so, I love the way he teaches. So I feel that it's very important. I don't know why, personally, I feel why should it be just the top 1,000 companies in India by market cap?
Right.
Why should it? Yeah, I mean, everybody should be part of it. And there must be some way to speed up what we are supposed to do, because we are hurting now. If you look at costs attached to calamities, costs attached to what's happening with various things, they're phenomenal. Nobody is able to actually put a cost and say that, look, this is the cost. And therefore we are still looking at only dollars and cents in terms of profitability. So ESG, I think, is going to make a huge impact in the world. And I feel the speed is too slow.
Mhm.
My personal view is that a lot more should be done, but like I said, it's not possible to do it through saying that, look, if you don't do, you will get penalized, because then you do the theory part of it and submit it. It also needs to be shown that something really is being done. And therefore, I think ESG is extremely, extremely crucial for everybody to understand, follow, to implement. And it starts with, now we are talking about, let's say, sustainability related to certain aspects of the planet. uh, I have to work myself backwards and say what makes me sustainable. My
Mhm.
being a little more ethical adds to my being sustainable. My sustaining my relationship to you with you adds to my being sustainable. My, keeping my immediate surroundings clean adds to my being more sustainable. If you know what I mean, it's not something which can be driven only top down. It has to be driven in different ways as well, although
Yep.
top down is probably a better approach, but not the only approach.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sir, I must give one compliment to you, and which I've been thinking for quite some time now since you've been talking. One is, please ensure that the book is written, and as you rightly would want to put it, please write it in the alchemist way of narrating a story and sharing your experiences, rather than the
Thank
PowerPoint way of 10 points, as you rightly said. Because I believe you have so much of wisdom actually to share across, and it is not just the travels, but also the perspective that you bring to the table about how one should be looking at this. I mean, just the when you started about the ESG part, Earth being a relative and being in the ICU. That's a picture you paint with words, and I must surely say, sir, you should actually get the writing the book completion underway
you so much.
as soon as possible, sir.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
looking ahead, what are your future aspirations? And please keep the completion of the book in as one of the aspirations. But looking ahead, what are your future aspirations, particularly when it comes to boardroom leadership? How do you envision leveraging your extensive experience to contribute to strategic decision making at the board level?
Okay. I will again, go a little bit, I won't say off tangent, but to bring it to this point, Rajesh, if you allow me. You see, what is happening now is that when we started, people like us started work, I'm giving you averages.
Mhm.
A person used to get into an organization or whatever around the age of 25, and
Right,
he would exit around the age of 55. Somebody will say, no, not 55, 58. So leave that. We just, yeah. 30 years or 32 years straddles across two generations, right?
right,
Now
right.
you have people getting into startups even in their late teens. Not
Right.
late teens, early 20s, because see, these are not areas where we should be debating. We are talking, just to give an explanation. And they are carrying on working into their late. I'm 65. Okay. And I think I'm good to go. If I have blessings from Providence, good to go for another 5, 7 years.
Right.
Okay. So that span is now across 50 years.
Right.
That straddles 3 to 4 generations. That's point one. So I will give you point by point. Point two is in the last 20 years prior to the COVID was a very, I won't say there were not disturbances and all, but a fairly stable stage of existence for the world because supply chains, the China as the factory of the world had been set. The US wanted goods cheap. China was supplying. The world was their market. The interest rates were low. So
Mhm.
in that 15, 20 years, the people who have grown up, majority of them have grown up in a stable environment to come and now start heading companies, etc.
Right.
Okay, so that's point two. Point three is those who had started, say, 40 or 50 years ago and who were owners of private enterprises or large private companies or, whatever it is, they are now reaching the stage where some of them have already relinquished control, or some of them are in the process of handing over, or some of them by default, if they don't have a choice, are still continuing but would like to hand over to someone.
Right.
In the interim, what has happened is in the last few years, post COVID, the world has become more, geopolitically unstable. If you see what's happening, this generation of people who I told you, which is now, handling the reins of several companies or in senior positions, not all, but majority of them have not seen major upheavals. Interest costs shooting up, those kind of things they have not seen.
Right.
Boards are now beginning to realize that you need a lot of understanding of technology, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity. So anybody who is beyond a certain age and is still holding on to several positions may not be able to understand the nitty-gritties of what's happening out there. If you take a combination of all this and you forget, board, I'll come to that, but if you take a combination of all that and you say that, look, I need to give back some percentage of my time to society in some form. Now, everybody, a doctor can give in one way.
Mm-hmm.
A police guy or a politician can give in some way. A corporate guy has to think in what way he needs to give back, right?
Right.
So his giving back is in the form of saying that, look, I can be a very good mentor to people, a coach to people, and not that kind of a coach where, I'm standing up there and telling them what to do. There are
Mm-hmm.
also, they are also doing a superb job, but there are also coaches who say, I'll handhold you, make you crawl and maybe walk a little, then leave you, and then hold on to the next generation of people I need to handhold for as long as I can do.
Right.
Now,
Right.
this translates into what you call as a board position, because if they have to decide and give a futuristic direction to organizations, I'm not speaking for myself or my wanting to pitch for a role, but you need more people who are willing to say that, look, money is important, but it's not the be all and end all. We actually need to look at the next 5, 10 years and see how to take organizations in that direction ethically, create a new bench strength like the Indian cricket team has done now. Year after year, they have a new bench strength, but they worked on it for maybe 8, 10, 15 years. Corporate India, the corporate world needs to do that. And I think, as they say, statistically, 65 to 70% of the companies across the world are privately held.
Mm.
Succession planning there is not at all the way it should be. So all this requires some amount of hand-holding. Uh, I think it's a natural thing that companies should be now looking at more seasoned boards who can actually add value beyond what is part of the defined mandate in writing and do a
Right.
little more. Because if you don't start somewhere with this concept of what I call as ISR,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter which level, Rajesh. ISR is individual social responsibility.
Right. Right.
If I know you now for reasonably long, 5, 6 months, and I sense that you need something where I can help. Now, that something is not always material. And if I say I cannot even invest 2 hours of my time in being that help to Rajesh, how do you think can I actually translate a CSR strategy into practice? Can does it make logical sense? It doesn't to me.
Right.
So it's
Right.
important that we understand that aspect, and therefore I feel that board positions now everywhere are very critical. I don't want this talk to be like I'm pitching for a board role. No, but I think it's very critical.
Yes, Mr. Gidwani, regardless of whether it sounds like you're pitching or not, I think these are facts that you've put out. Having a decent enough of corporate experience and understanding the need, as you rightly said, the span that these startups or these so-called founders of these startups are going to actually spend in terms of their corporate contribution has gone up from say 30 years to 50 years. And at the
Yes.
same time, since they are starting young and have not actually seen the adversities, which some time back you said that when you talk to young management students or young business leaders, you actually ask them to try and get an experience with companies who are trying to establish themselves or trying to set up shops, so that you get to learn a lot of things than working with already established brands. It applies, I think, exactly similarly to the startups also, because unless and until they get to know the adversities that they may face, they may not, but if they know that this is what can come your way in case you are not functioning in a particular manner, then at least they'll be ready. And you need a person there to to tell them that this is how things can go wrong, and this is what you need to do. So I believe experience definitely counts, and what you're bringing to the table is not just in terms of number of years or the geographies that you have worked in, or the cultures that you have worked in, the demographies that you have worked in, but the wisdom that you have acquired all through these years of corporate experience. So I really would like to would like to say that what you're bringing to the table is for 32 years multiplied by four companies, multiplied by say about 100 200 people in each of the company. You're actually bringing in about 400 500 years of experience to the table. So that's absolutely brilliant. Which brings us to the last question, sir. You've been associated with Directors Institute, gaining insights into global corporate governance and ESG practices. How has this experience enriched your perspective, and what unique value do you think the Institute offers to business leaders?
I must say, it took me a while. I think we were in touch with each other through their correspondence and whatever social media, etc. For a good 2 3 months, I'm being honest, Rajesh. There is so much of ever since that ed tech and all started. You
Right,
keep
right.
getting this, and so you don't know who is doing the right thing and who is not. But at some point in time, I think they sound convincing, and more than convincing, they sound genuine.
Mhm.
That was an important factor for me internally to consider. And so I decided to go with it. And I think my experience has been uh, a very happy one. I would say that, and I need to reinstate this again, that look, it's not about whether I get a good role or no. I'm learning so much that my first philosophy that I told you, that I'm a student of life for life, is getting a green tick. Okay, so yeah, so I would think that a lot of people should, if they get an opportunity, do the program, and it doesn't matter where they would like to do. Although I feel that if you are from this part of the world, you should be open to doing it with them. And the more important part that I see is it runs like a well-oiled machine.
Mhm.
Uh, you ask a query, the answers come very fast. Uh, Most of the time, the answers are in the form of solutions. It's not a back and forth. My personal experience.
Mhm.
Those things matter because I'm somewhere deep down a hardcore marketing person. So I benchmark marketing capabilities and what you call as TATs and all that, turnaround times, and to see it's not just some service which is being given, but what behind the service is also coming to you. I think they are doing a very good job. I only hope that they continue to operate with this philosophy that besides training managers and all, I had made one kind of a suggestion, to them that look, we get tied in for a defined period of time where we have access to the material.
Mhm.
But nowadays, everything is moving to a mobile app. So it becomes like a revenue generator where you have a monthly fee and you keep paying, and the material is getting upgraded in the backdrop, and you are constantly learning. Even after that duration that you have material available to you is over, you keep subscribing post that to a fee. And as the
Mhm.
number of such people, and if people like me can also contribute articles to that service, etc. So the whole thing becomes like growing, a well-growing organism, and I think it helps the whole process. So I'm very happy. I'm now into my last half portion of the Digital Directors program, which I think I should complete by November, and then I move on to the International Corporate Directors program. And I'm hoping that some good assignments come up for me in this part of the world. I'm open to India as well, but the fact that I'm out of India for this long, my natural leaning is to have something here. But like I said, it doesn't matter. I'm very happy with the program.
Right, sir. Mr. Gidwani, thank you. Thank you for sharing your remarkable journey, valuable insights, the suggestions that you had for us, and your leadership across diverse industries and commitment to mentoring future leaders are truly inspiring. We're deeply appreciative of your time and the wisdom you've shared, which will surely resonate with many aspiring professionals. Thank you once again for joining us on FaceTime with Leaders, Mr. Gidwani. It has been an enriching experience.
Thank you, Rajesh. Can I add one last
Oh, yes, please.
piece of, or am I done for the
No. Please
session?
go ahead, sir.
Okay. So, as I told you somewhere in the entire talk that, for me, this doing this 7 Habits program and principle-centered leadership program with Dr. Kavi was like a life changer, actually a
Mhm.
life changer over the last 30 years. I completely relooked at how life should be done. One of the things he said, which, made that change was he said, let's say you are on your deathbed
Mhm.
right now, you know that you're dying, let's say, and you have 4 people standing next to you. One is your spouse,
Mhm.
the other is one of your in-laws, the third is one of your, let's say, corporate colleagues, and the fourth is some friend.
Okay.
And after you pass away, you would like each of them to say something about you.
Okay.
Okay. What is it that you would like them to say? If you want them to say something which is meaningful, then you better start living those aspects of your life from now. You can't wait till the time that you are almost going to pass away.
Wow. Wow. That's, I mean, I believe this actually gives you, pointers. These are 4 people, and now you have pointers. You now exactly know what you need to do to ensure that these guys, after you pass away, these guys have something to say about you, and
And the
you,
reason why it is because they are your, I think, best critiques.
yes, yes,
That's the reason why you take chosen a spouse, an in-law, a friend. And
absolutely,
because if I say sibling and all, sometimes the bond is such that they may not have anything negative.
right,
And somebody who's probably going to talk bad behind you. If they don't talk bad, at least, or if they don't talk good, at least they should not be talking bad. So
bad, right. Absolutely great, Mr. Gidwani. Thank you once again for being on
thank you.
FaceTime with Leaders with us.
Thank you.
We look forward to bringing more inspiring stories and insights from distinguished leaders in our next session. Until then, stay motivated, keep learning, and continue to strive for excellence in your endeavors. This is Rajesh Joshi signing off. Thank you.